Well, I will dive in. I am Liz Eggleston. Welcome. I'm the co-founder of Course Report. And if you are new here, we've been helping students research and compare courses and coding boot camps for over a decade. Whether you are pursuing web development, AI, machine learning, data, cybersecurity, we can help you guide your journey into tech. So today's topic is one that is top of mind for every career changer in 2025, which is how AI is impacting the technical interview. We can think about that in a lot of different ways. We are here to unpack what is hype, what is actually changing, and how you can be ready for it, especially if you're thinking about attending a boot camp, or maybe you are already in a boot camp or in a course to change your career. So we've brought together a fantastic panel of career experts from some of the leading coding boot camps in the US. They work with students every day to navigate interviews, to help them land jobs, and also to adapt to what is changing, which right now feels like that is all AI-driven changes in tech hiring. So I want to introduce everyone. We've got Vinny Sanfilippo, who is the Senior Director of Career Development at Tech Elevator and Hack Reactor. Thanks so much for being here, Vinny. And then we've got Miriam Salam, who is the Learning and Development Specialist at Springboard. Thanks for being here, Miriam. Trey Simpson, who is a career coach at General Assembly. Thanks for being here, Trey. And Valentina Ancietta, who is the Workforce Development Manager at 4Geeks Academy. Thank you so much for being here, Valentina. So we're going to start, as we always do, with questions that were submitted during the RSVP. So if you RSVP'd for this live Q&A and you left a question when you did that, we will incorporate that in and we will ask those questions to our panel. But of course, this can be interactive. So if you have a question throughout the next hour, please drop it into the Q&A in live in YouTube Live or in the chat, and we will get to as many as we can. So thanks so much to everyone for being here. We can jump in, and let's start by kind of grounding this conversation in the typical interview journey. So when we talk about a technical interview, that process for your graduates typically is, I think of that as consisting of about 4 steps: kind of the screening process, the culture interview, that technical interview itself, and maybe some kind of assessment or project. But Vinny, could you give us a quick overview of that general structure of the technical interview today, from the screening process to that assessment?
Yes, absolutely. So I think first and foremost that the 4 steps that you just mentioned there are very common. Like, most companies will do that. Sometimes the screen and the culture interview will be combined. Sometimes the code test or any kind of code project might come before the technical interview. And the goal of the technical interview is generally just to assess you as a person, see how you answer questions, how you approach problems, and to make sure that what you submitted or who you've been so far matches who you are on paper, right? So it can be as simple as me just say I'm your technical interviewer. It's generally going to be another engineer or the hiring manager for that technical role. And I'm going to talk you through different things like, tell me about object-oriented programming. What's this? What's that? And we're going to talk about the different technologies that are on your resume. It can get as technical, though, as a whiteboarding challenge or a live coding challenge with a member of the technical team, depending on how long you're there and what that company's individual process is. But generally speaking, it's an interview that's going to be technical, and like the 80% of it. You should still be ready for tell me about yourself or a star question here or there, but it's mostly going to be focusing on technical concepts and testing your knowledge.
Okay, so the order of events may be different by company, but the goal is the same, and we should kind of expect those same general buckets of the interview process. So let's talk about what's actually changing, what feels like it's changing over the last 8 to 12 months, especially in this kind of rise of AI tools, both on the interviewing side and on the interviewee side. I'll pose this to all of the panelists first before we get into what is changing. And what do you think is not changing? Like, have you seen any kind of fears or hype around technical interviews over the last year that just have not panned out?
Should we just go in any order?
Yeah, Miriam, please.
So I actually worked in recruitment a little bit before I started to work into Springboard. And when I was working in recruitment, I saw the transition kind of behind the scenes of how recruitment teams started to integrate AI. And so I think there is some concern in terms of interviewing when it comes to how AI is being integrated into human resources. I think the first concern is it's kind of removing that human touch out of the interviewing process. And so what I would encourage students to do is before they apply to a job, they need to reach out on LinkedIn to a hiring manager, not a recruiter, a hiring manager, because at the end of the day, the hiring manager makes the decision. And the second thing is that AI is, in terms of technical interviewing, AI is assessing people's code. So before in the interviewing process, we used to see a hiring manager sitting with someone and they would have some sort of pair programming. Right now, AI is kind of weeding people out. And I think that's a disservice for the company, because I think companies who hire based off of a person and their talent and their willingness to try and how they learn and approach problems is much more valuable than a person who gets the right answer because they can think, right? But we do see this kind of change. And I think in that instance, it's very important that, the reality is that students just need to brush up on their algorithms and their knowledge about interviewing. I usually make the comparison of studying for the SATs and graduating high school. You really need to double down and study for the SATs, even if it's not going to be relevant in your job.
That's two really good points. So in recruitment, kind of seeing AI being, incorporated into the recruiting process and actually seeing that happen. And then also seeing AI starting to maybe replace pair programming in some instances. So those are two things that are changing, and I want to get to those as well. Does anybody, maybe this is also the answer could be no, that everything has panned out, but is there anything that y'all were hearing a year ago in terms of AI in the interview process or the job search or the technical interview that you think just has not come to fruition?
I have
Trey?
one in the form of just asynchronous interviewing that can definitely manifest itself in a number of forms, especially when we're talking about technical assessments, getting those take home, step-by-step instructions of this is what we're hoping your deliverables are going to be from a company. You have 72 hours, however long to get it done. Something I absolutely have not seen come to fruition is the increased adoption of self-recorded interviews where you'll be given a prompt. You'll record yourself giving that answer within a certain time frame. It processes, moves you on to the next step, kind of just goes, okay, you're done. And, if you're good enough, somebody will reach out to you accordingly. I haven't seen that as often as I was expecting to. I think that's a great thing. I'd much rather be in front of somebody as opposed to trying to, put on my show for the camera. But that's definitely one that stood out to me.
That's a really good point. I feel like I was seeing that a year ago, seeing people on LinkedIn talking about, we may see more of these self-recorded interviews. Also kind of seeing these demos of, AI interviewers. Do y'all hear your students say that they're encountering AI interviewers in the process? Has that come to fruition?
I hear it more from some folks that are interviewing with startups than I do with larger scale corporations. I think larger scale corporations are kind of generally speaking, the wait and see kind of people of what is this going to be a risky choice or not? Let's let some of the innovators in the market figure that one out first before we make any kind of big investments there. That's generally what I've been seeing.
That's a really good point. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think this is not happening more because, again, this is something new for the candidates, but this is also something new for the company. So these powered AI platforms, they're like developing, because sometimes, of course, they can understand how someone answers a question or something, but they cannot really understand like the confidence people are, I don't know, using while answering the question, or the problem solving skills, or the way they like think about a response. So there's many factors that maybe these platforms or these AI technical interview tools are not taking into consideration now, and I think that that's why it's not happening more. But once they like make the finishing touches and everything, I think this is going to happen more and more and more and more.
Okay, that's a great point. Okay, so then what is changing? So Miriam did laid out a couple of major things that she's seen over the last year or two. Trey, how are you seeing your students' interviews experiences really evolving at General Assembly?
Yeah, interview experiences evolving. Well, I definitely want to reiterate the importance of having some kind of just like awareness of those take-home assessments, and the fact that I have found, are becoming like increasingly project-based. And so adhere to the things that are specifically called out on these assessments to, of course, give yourself the best chance. From a human to humans, more slash like behavioral interviewing perspective, one of the panelists have brought up the point of like pair programming sessions and those becoming like gradually outdated. And part of me definitely agrees about that. That doesn't mean, completely cast it out of your mind. I'd much rather you have some kind of anticipation that, okay, it might go this way, as opposed to having it completely off of your radar. And when you're presented with those opportunities, that is your chance to, in addition to demonstrating your technical prowess, focus on the person that's in the room with you. It is indeed pair programming. As much as we can simulate like actually working with that person or those people on a day in and day out basis, and kind of like giving them a preview of what hiring you full time looks like, the better kind of situation you'll be in, or at least the better impression a hiring team could have of you. So yeah, hopefully that made sense.
Definitely. And Vinny, what's one way that you're seeing AI or other kind of trends really shift the interview process at Tech Elevator or Hack Rector?
Yeah, so as a market as a whole, just like the accessibility of generative AI when it comes to these technical interviews, everyone's had their moment where they've been stuck on a technical problem that they're like, I'm going to ask ChatGPT what it has to say about this, and maybe it'll write some code for me. Don't copy paste the code, just like full stop there. Engineers will know, the hiring manager reviewing it or the AI reviewing it will know that you used generative AI to write this code. So I think like that kind of like check part is a new part of the hiring manager, to make sure that the code that you wrote is yours, because they're hiring you, not ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those things. And so a big shift I've seen since in the advent of that is that hiring managers will take time to dig into your project rather than coding with you right there in real time, but they'll dig into your project and ask you why you made the choices you made when it comes to building that. And I've seen a lot of earlier on, I've seen more students than I do now that we know how to coach around this, is who would get caught in that cycle of like, oh, I don't know I use ChatGPT to write this code. And it would be very evident that like it wasn't them that wrote the code and they didn't get the job. So I think that's something that we've all grown and adapted to now that this tool has been out there, but the industry is still very much in the form of, okay, we're going to make sure we have to screen for these so that the junior that I'm hiring, I know is the junior that's writing the same code, and that's who's going to show up to work on day one.
I have a comment about that. So that's totally true, but I think that also companies and employers are now kind of expecting that candidates use AI, of course, because they need AI to evolve. They need to know how to use AI for not AI to replace them. So I think it's really important that we explain to our grads how to ethically use AI during technical interviews and coding assessments. And when they get that one-on-one interview with a real person, they should be able to understand and explain why they use AI, why they use that tool, and yeah, to try to explain why they use this as a tool to be better, to be a better developer or whatever. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for them to use AI during a technical interview. It's just for them to explain why they did it and how they did it.
It's a serious balance, right? Like between showing your AI fluency, which it seems like is quite important, and we'll get to that, to more questions about that in a little bit, and not just, yes, copying and pasting the answer from ChatGPT. Okay, I think that is a really important nuance. Yeah. Okay, anything else that is specifically that we want to call out as like having specifically impacted the technical interview? If not, we've got a bunch of questions here from RSVPs, and I think we can get a little bit further into those. Yeah, Trey says, okay, bring it on. All right. Okay, so Valentina, we can start here. So are you seeing this was a question that we got. Are you seeing live coding interviews being replaced or supplemented by AI-based assessments? And I think we've heard a couple of answers here, but like, do your students still expect that they're going to be doing live coding in an interview?
So live coding, I think, isn't disappearing, but it's definitely evolving, as we said before. Like, many companies are now supplementing those live interviews with AI-assisted take-home projects or interviews, or even, as I said, they're letting candidates use AI tools openly during live sessions to simulate these real working conditions, real work experiences. So I think the key is to prepare our students for this by encouraging, again, to the ethical use of AI. So to summarize, it's not disappearing at all, because again, I think this is something that is constantly evolving. They're developing these tools and they're not perfect yet, but we should prepare them, of course, to be able to go through these new technical test assessments. They're like hybrids, in my opinion.
Right now, kind of in that hybrid.
Yeah.
Is anybody seeing, like, are there any specific like AI assessment tools that are kind of like dominating right now that you are telling your students or like showing your mentees to expect?
I don't think there's any relevant like AI tools out there that are doing assessments because AI is still really new in this space. However, huge companies that do assessments like Code Signals and like HackerRank are incorporating AI into their platforms. So you'll see corporate companies using those platforms, and they've evolved from 10 years ago.
That's a really good point. Some of like the tools that you would or platforms that you would expect to see last year in an interview, those may have shifted and evolved with AI. Okay, that's a great point.
I've seen one pop up, like it's like HireVue as part of this. Like it's not for the technical interview though. It's like the phone screen bit that a lot of companies have been doing, where it'll be like a pre-screen phone screen where they'll have you do a couple of those async questions Trey mentioned earlier, and then they'll have AI will generate like the list of the top 10 candidates because companies get 1,000 applications to one. I've seen that to be a growing trend, but doesn't seem to be taking place at the technical interview.
Okay, that is a fantastic point. You may see that AI kind of phone screen happen earlier on in the process, but not once you actually get the interview and are doing the technical interview. Okay, so if we zoom out a little bit, Vinny, do you think that is changing how employers are viewing like remote assessments? Like I think in the last year or two, as we've seen this kind of like return to office trend, maybe we're seeing more in-person interviews. Like, are we seeing a shift back to in-person interviews? And do you think that that's just a reaction to return to office, or could that also be a reaction to AI and like generative AI being used in interviews?
Yes, I have seen a shift towards return to in person for interviews, but it's towards the end of the process. Like a lot of folks seems to be incorporating a team, like your technical interview will be paired with come in for an hour technical interview and then be ready to meet the team and have lunch with the team or coffee with the team. That seems to be really back on the rise, and I think it's just because they want to make sure the people that are talking are the people that they're hiring. They want to make sure that you're that culture fit, that you're the real person, that you're not putting in the interview questions I'm asking you into ChatGPT and reading them off to me, right? I think that's an adaptation that we're seeing a lot of companies go for. And so they'll pair that with the technical interview so that they don't waste your time by bringing them on campus. I don't think you're going to often see like the three or four steps all in person. I think we're in like a hybrid situation. Someone mentioned it before, where it's kind of a mix and match and pick yours. But there will, if it's an in-office role, you should expect that you might have an in-office interview at some point, just because that's where they're at now.
That is totally fair. Okay, and then Miriam, one of our audience questions came from Patricia, and she asked, how do you distinguish between live video and AI generated messaging or video, I guess, during an interview? I'll pose this to you, but also to anyone. Like, does anybody have? Is it just obvious in the process, or anything that you can help Patricia look for?
Yeah, so this is actually like a really new phenomenon. I don't know if anyone else has seen these like posts on LinkedIn where people have talked about literally getting scammed or getting these fake offers, and then like people get their bank accounts compromised. And so it's actually becoming a really serious issue in my opinion. And so the way that you can protect yourself from this is you need to do as much research as possible on that company. I know that the interviewing landscape has changed a lot recently. It's not what it was 10 years ago. And when you get an interview, it is really exciting, but you need to protect yourself. So the first step I would take is that you need to work with your career coach, or you need to look into that company, and you need to make sure the company is real. That's the first thing. And the thing that you want to look for is you want to look for, on LinkedIn, has this company hired other people in the past? Is there an HR team? Is there a team for the role that they're hiring for? And is there some sort of potential hiring manager that you can pinpoint? I would then recommend that you message people in that company on LinkedIn. They might not respond, but if they respond, at least it's more information. You can learn a little bit about the company culture. And the third thing is that the company needs to have a working website, and it needs to, be professional in their emails towards you. So if the website isn't working, it's broken, but they're claiming to be some corporate company, red flag. If they're emailing you, but there's like grammatical errors in the email, maybe the person is not using the right syntax for that specific language, red flag. So I would highly, highly caution you to interview before doing this research, because if you don't do this research, it's really difficult to tell the legitimacy of the company.
That is really good advice, and also kind of pinpoints how helpful or important it can be to have a career coach or that, career like mentor at the boot camp, or in your course, be kind of in your corner. It's not something that everybody gets access to when they're starting a job search,
No, and I was going to say, because they has been happening a lot to our students, that they have been tried to scam them. So it's not only important to really make sure that the company is a legit company, but also to make sure that the person or AI that is reaching out to you is part of that company. Because I've seen students, for example, that they got an email from, instead of, Vinny@4geeksacademy.com, Vinny@4geeks.com, and they're just trying to impersonate these companies, and with the use of AI, they can almost like clone your face and everything. So I think nowadays all the companies should have on their career website a clear structure of how the selection process works, okay? Because if you get something suspicious, like, an AI interview, we're not going to be able to meet the recruiter, or it's just a chatbot or something like that, you have to have a way to really understand if that's the real company and Of course, reaching out on LinkedIn is the best option, but not all of them answer. So I think like transparency is going to be very like something that is going to be really important for these new trends on hiring processes using AI.
Right, that as career coaches and as folks from the bootcamp side of it, you can help your students, and as you know, students, you should be really thinking about like how to adapt to this process. But we should not ignore the fact that like this is also the burden is also on hiring managers and companies, right? Like it's something that has to be figured out because we are definitely in a scammer timeline. Okay, so Vinny.
I got a couple tips here for anybody who doesn't have the benefit of a career coach out there to practice a little hygiene around this, just to put yourself through that filter. One, recruiter, until they're making you an offer, is never going to ask you for your bank account information. They're never going to ask for your address. They might ask if you're authorized to work in the country that you're applying to, but they're not going to ask you what your address is. So like, be careful with your personal information when you're out there. If they're asking for too much, that's a red flag. Like they can ask for your email. They can ask for your phone number. Those are normal things for somebody to ask for. They're on your resume. You submitted it to them. Your resume shouldn't have your address on it anymore. It can have your like city that you live in case that if there's a state kind of employer thing that you're looking at there. Talk to your career coach or a recruiter friend of yours about that. But just practice due diligence on sharing your information with strangers. Second bit is if they're making you go really fast and don't give you any information about the company and want to make you an offer without an interview or without like any kind of, you haven't met a human yet, like you've done this AI interview, you did this AI take-home test, it's also a red flag. You're all incredible out there, I'm sure, but I as a like say a boss, am not going to pay you $70,000 plus without meeting you before, right? Like that's not something companies do. They're going to make sure that HR meets you at least once. They're going to make sure the hiring manager meets you at least once before you get hired by a company. So if you haven't talked to anybody yet, if there's no one for you to ask questions to, it's another red flag that should send signals to your tummy saying this is probably a scam.
Just to also add on to what, oh, sorry, Trey, go ahead.
Oh, you, my friend, you go.
Okay, so just to add on to what Vinny said as well, he made up a really good point about AI video interviews, and I think that if also the first round interview is a video interview, I wouldn't do it. I think that you need to meet someone before you put in effort or do any take home or do any, that's not how it works. I think companies should meet you, talk to you, and then say, hey, we had this technical assessment. Hey, it should always be the second round of an interview. It shouldn't be the first round. Or I personally would just disregard that company in that process.
That technical assessment or project should never be the first thing a company asks you to do.
They do this thing, I think now, where the first round, they ask you to send like an introduction video about yourself. That's something that I've seen. And I really believe introductions, especially hiring for a serious company and a company that's established, should be a face-to-face thing. You're not going to get to know me through a video introduction. And I think if a company wants to get to know me through a video introduction, that's not a place where I want to work.
And okay, those are all fantastic tips. I'll just wrap this up by I kind of mentioned this saying that, you know, it does seem like a great advantage to be going through this process right now. That clearly, I mean, it sounds pretty murky. There are a lot of people on the job search right now. AI seems to have made the whole process more difficult, to put it gently. But Trey, do you think, you know, we've talked about different ways that the technical interview like questions are changing and like becoming more project based, or like more collaborative. Like, do you think that bootcamp grads actually kind of have an edge in the job search and the technical interview process right now, just because of where like the resources that they kind of have access to through their school or their course?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that you all do, if for no other reason than the fact that the information and that kind of experience is fresh on your memory. And so if you are fortunate enough to, create enough courage to fully step out of your shell and immerse yourself in kind of like this boot camp process and work in tandem with the people around you, that's going to be the closest that we can get to, I'm looking for a certain word, just like, envisioning yourself in that full-time software engineering role, hypothetically speaking, or UX design, data science, whatever it is that you want to do. And so if you're already in a boot camp, start talking to people. If you're thinking about going into a boot camp, get ready to start talking to people. The sooner we can build some comfort around that, the easier your life will be, let alone your job search process. Want to reiterate that I do find that things are becoming increasingly project-based. I actually am married to an engineer with my goofy self. Can you believe somebody married me? Anyway, she had a take-home assessment not that long ago that was a specific project outline, and then there were just a couple of notes that were unique to the company in reference to just what they wanted to see. And so they said, include an Easter egg of your choice that follows these certain kinds of code requirements. Include a README that has instructions in regards to how the app that we're asking you to make works and why you decided to use certain styling, so on and so forth. And she has a follow-up conversation coming up where they passed her through the technical assessment based off of what they saw, but now they want to have a conversation around her experience to understand, okay, you did it, but now can you kind of like do it with us? Or can we understand like your working style, your thought process, so on and so forth. And so look for those specific call outs, definitely adhere to them. But rule number one of the job search, expect the unexpected. Absolutely anything can happen. And so, in approaching this process with that kind of expectation, I like to think that it will help, kind of like skim off some of the anxiety off of the top of this process, if you will.
I think that is fantastic advice. And before we move on to the next section, Denise, who's joining us live, actually asked a great question. Can you provide information for contracting roles? Like, is the technical interview process the same for if you're applying for a contract role as if you're applying for like a W-2 full-time role? Is that changing at all?
I'm finding more often than not it is the same or like strikingly similar, just because the folks that I've worked with over these past however many years and, walking into a contract opportunity, there are usually some conversations around a potential extension to hire. And so with the opportunity, at play for you to come on as a full-time employee, they're proactively evaluating you in the same way that they would anybody else, assuming that they had the budget for somebody full-time present day. And so, yeah, I'm not hearing of a lot of differentiation between those respective candidate processes.
If I could just add on to that, I think that's also something that we've seen that's changing since 2022, 2023 in the job market. I think contracting interviews actually were way shorter than real interviews, but because the power dynamic has shifted towards the company, we see contracting interviews, the process being very similar to regular full-time roles. The other thing I want to caution about that Trey mentioned about the take-home test is that sometimes I started to see that companies started to do interviews with people because they want to get free work. So that's something that you have to be very careful about. I think that the type of assessment that they're giving, it needs to be kind of generic and it needs to be testing generic things. If you're getting a take home where they're asking you to do something that's very specific to their company, then you need to kind of pause and ask the human resources recruiter, what is the process for interviewing and what is the goal that they're trying to accomplish in sending you this take home exam.
That sounds like it would probably make more sense as a paid assignment or paid assessment.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Well, okay, so that's a great point, Miriam, that the dynamics have shifted a bit. There are more people on the job search right now. But as we were mentioning, you can kind of think about, boot campers as being at a bit of an advantage because they are getting to go through this process with with a career coach or with that person in their corner, and like maybe getting to demo capstone projects, like actually getting to go through that, get that practice building some of those projects using some of the newer technologies, things that you don't necessarily get time to do if you're not doing this in a for some dedicated amount of time. It's not super common. So I want to talk about how each of your boot camps goes about that prep process for students for the technical interview process. Vinny, maybe we can start with you. How does Tech Elevator and Hack Reactor prepare students for the new technical interview landscape?
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I love this question. Thank you. So I have a two-pronged approach that we do here to prepare for the technical interview, because as Trey said so eloquently earlier, and expect the unexpected, anything can happen on the job search. And so when it comes to the technical interview, we have a couple different things that we do to prepare them. We do a mock interview with each of our students will get a mock interview with one of our instructors, just to make sure that they have that opportunity to interview with a human. And that's typically the last step we have them do, because I want that interview to be difficult. I want them to understand how difficult a technical interview could be, from just me getting to chat with you versus like hey, this is how it is, and we're going to whiteboard here together. Students can also ask for more time to do more interviews with us, as many times as they want, as availability allows. So that's something that we like to provide for them. And then we've implemented an AI practice tool for students for technical interviews, where students can record, have their it's kind of one of those async interviews where we populate the question, and we've written a ton of interviews for them to practice with. But like, say that's the question, and then it records my answer and then gives me feedback in real time. And so there's a step in our program that has each of the students do one of those for both behavioral and technical interviews, just to get practice saying those words. How's your eye contact? How's your posture? Like, is what you're saying, it's sophisticated enough to tell me that the content of your answer is correct or not, and then give you the feedback on how you're talking or how you're coming off. So that's a little bit about what we do there to prepare students for technical interviews.
Fantastic. And Valentina, how about at 4Geeks? What is the approach?
So our program includes mock interviews too, whiteboarding, code review sessions, and I think we have a strong focus on project presentation, because I think that also helps them to feel more confident. We also teach them how to talk through their logic, anticipate questions, and even handle mistakes, because of course that happens. And now we've added an AI literacy too. Students learn how to use tools like ChatGPT, Copilot during their interview prep, and also how to explain their thought process even when those tools were involved. Right now we're partnering with an AI-powered platform that offers customized mock interviews based on the company, roles, seniority levels, so they can really have customized options to practice and prepare. And it also generates like interview scripts, simulates real AI-driven like interviews, and it gives them feedback at the end. So we're going to keep the 101 human touch doing our mock interviews, but we're also trying to evolve and partnering with this platform.
And Miriam, how about at Springboard? What is the approach these days for the career curriculum?
Yeah, so at Springboard, we really focus on a one-to-one interaction between student and either career coach or mentor. And so I think that's really important, because it gives students the opportunity to really work through their technical interviewing skills. So if you have a technical interview coming up, you can do a mock behavioral interview with your career coach. You can do a mock technical with your career coach. You can, kind of research the company beforehand, but you also have access to a mentor who's worked in the field, who is, either a data scientist, software engineer, cyber professional, who you can find out from firsthand information as well as practice technical interviewing. And I think this is really valuable because they've done it and they know what kind of questions are going to come at you, and they know how to, walk through those answers with you. And so I think it's important to talk to not just a career coach, but someone in industry who has that experience. And so that's what we do at Springboard.
Fantastic. And Trey, how about at General Assembly? What is the technical interview prep process look like these days?
Damn, I didn't want to go last on that one because I knew everybody was going to beat me to it. And
There are a lot of different approaches, though. I love it.
Sure. Yeah,
it's cool.
Absolutely. So we definitely share a lot of the same commonalities in the form of, the project-based learning, the individualized career coaching. Similar to Vinny and his team, we also will include an instructor-led like technical interview, so that way you can get the closest possible simulation to like a live working session technical interview. I think General Assembly, and especially myself, just because this is the kind of guy and coach I am, we do a great job of placing strong emphasis on having the presentation and behavioral skills necessary to even get to the technical assessment. It sounds great. More often than not, I'm working with folks who are incredibly anxious about the technical assessment without, fully realizing that, all right, we got a few steps to take before we can even encounter those conversations. So let's make sure that you can tell your story as best as you possibly can. Explain your working style, your personality, your thought process, how you do cross collaborative work. And then as we're getting a little bit closer and we can kind of, smell the technical assessment coffee, we can be all the more intentional about making sure that you are as sharp as a tech and walking into that kind of situation.
That's fantastic. And I think it's very clear that there are similarities between all of the boot camps that are represented on this panel. And just to point out to anyone watching, like any legitimate boot camp that you're looking at should have a career curriculum, right? They should have an approach to this. That's a major difference between like a short course that you may pay like $50 for and learn like one new skill, and an immersive boot camp where the point is to be fully trained to get a transition into a new career. And I will also just point out that people mentioned the AI mock interviews, and if you aren't in a boot camp, like there are some other AI mock interview tools out there. Our parent company, Career.io, is one of those. So I'll link to that in the follow-up email or in the follow-up blog post. But there are several tools out there that you can also use if you don't have access like today to that interview prep. And Vinny, so let's talk about AI fluency, which we've started to talk about already. Like, are employers testing for this? Like, of course, we don't want to copy and paste generative AI code into an assessment, but on the other hand, like, it does seem like employers want to and need to see that you are, have some level of AI fluency. So, do you see employers testing for this even in some of the more junior roles? And Steph asked when she RSVP'd which tools are kind of table stakes today. What are y'all seeing?
Yeah, happy to dive in here. So in the same vein as I said before, of companies want to make sure you are you and can code, right? If they're going to pay you this money, they want to make sure you can code. But part of that is also being up to date with the latest tools that are out there on the market. So you have to have some sort of AI literacy going in there. You have to have fiddled around. You have to have played. You don't have to be an expert, but there are a lot of like free 20, 30-minute micro learnings out there on a variety of different sites that you can find that you can use to brush up while you're getting ready for your interview. A new common interview question I'm seeing right now is, what have you used to build with AI lately? Or what's your favorite prompt that you've been using for when you get stuck? So to answer your question, yes, companies are looking for it. They want to make sure that you've at least had some experience or exposure to the tool. The big three that I see out there that companies are looking for is around generative AI. So Copilot, ChatGPT, or Gemini, I think are like the three ones that are out there that I see the most. There are some other ones out there, but those are the three that I think people talk about most. And if you say, I used Copilot to work on this, or I played with Copilot to do this, or I used Gemini to help me get started on this side project, or I did X, Y, and Z with ChatGPT, I think that would clear the hurdle there that you're looking for.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini. Is everybody teaching those? Like, is that a part of the curriculum at all of your boot camps now?
Yeah, for example, at 4Geeks, we recently launched vibe coding. It's not a boot camp, it's like a course right now, but we are teaching our students how to use Copilot, ChatGPT, Cursor. That is one that Alejandro that is teaching the course really likes. So yeah, I think that is also going to open more opportunities for students. There are not a lot over there yet, but if you look for vibe coding jobs and stuff like that, there are going to be those jobs popping more and more and more every day. So
Okay, and I'll pose that similar question to you, Trey. At General Assembly, Denise asked when she RSVP'd, what's the best way to study AI related topics like LLMs, machine learning, prompt engineering. If I want to, she was actually asking about pivoting into QA testing, but even more generally, like, is this something that y'all would recommend somebody learns like after the boot camp, or do you find that this is really just being incorporated into the curriculum now once they get to you for career coaching?
A combination of both. I would say that just how to get the most from AI is gradually being incorporated in our, respective instructional courses. But I'm a firm believer of, at least when it comes to tech, which is very much a what have you done for me lately kind of game, understanding what's hot right now and leaning into that to your advantage as best as you possibly can. So I would highly recommend incorporating how you can use AI in your favor to sharpen your skills, to make yourself more competitive in the space, all of that good stuff, as one of the focal points of your self-learning journey post-graduation. For QA roles, more specifically, I think about it as being broken down into two different kinds of like pathways, if you will. So are we thinking more along the lines of testing AI models and systems, model accuracy, making sure that we are limiting the bias that AI has proven to have sometimes in these early advanced adoptions, how robust it is, versus leveraging AI, using the LLMs or the machine learning tools to improve software QA testing. And so whichever of those two piques your interest the most, I would recommend kind of just like leaning into one path over the other. That will dictate what kinds of roles you're going to be searching for, what kinds of skills you're going to be developing to be as competitive for that kind of like QA AI hybrid role as best as you possibly can. In regards to resources, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's free, go for it. So start with the free ones, Coursera, Udemy, so on and so forth. But as you're learning this information, make sure you're putting it into practice and building something. Again, it doesn't have to be like this huge, fantastic thing. We're learners. It's an ever evolving process, but you can do, I'm a sports guy, so here's a sports analogy that hopefully will click. Hopefully. You can do research on how to improve your basketball jump shot all you want to. Hey, I got to tuck my elbow this way, flick at this velocity, so on and so forth. But until you get out on that court and shoot a couple shots, it's not going to resonate. You're not going to be able to perfect what it is that you're working towards. And so try to keep those things in mind, but the information is available to you more often than not free. It's a matter of what you do with it afterward.
I feel like we're also seeing more of these kind of like, I don't want to call them graduate level, but they're almost like, short courses or kind of graduate courses offered by boot camps themselves, maybe for like alumni who are coming back to learn these skills more quickly, like in a dedicated environment. Are there any of your schools offering anything like that right now?
So I know Springboard is definitely coming out with a short course on generative AI.
Okay.
In the upcoming months, for sure. I mean, I can't give it a specific date of when we're launching, but I know that we are. And I think actually the bootcamp industry is moving towards short courses because the industry's changed. I think that people are kind of looking to supplement their knowledge right now. And so I think if you are not seeing boot camps having a bunch of short courses, you will in the next 5 years for sure.
Valentina, Norbert asked in the RSVP process, is it a good idea to develop data analytics or data science skills as a full stack developer? Do you see 4Geeks alumni talking about this, returning, like once they are already in software engineering? Like, are people kind of shifting towards data, or is that just natural?
Yes, definitely, and I see it both ways. For example, we have some graduates from the Full Stack Development Bootcamp that had a background in data science, and we see that these type of grads do really good when they start the job search process, because a full stack developer with data fluency like brings a lot to the table. So you'll be able to understand product metrics, integrate dashboards, optimize databases, and of course that will open like a lot of opportunities. So, yeah.
Short answer, yes, which I think we could have probably predicted. And you know, the other thing that I hear so often, like from like tech CEOs who are talking about hard skills versus soft skills, is really that in the age of AI, those soft skills, those like human skills, are still critical, maybe even more critical. So Valentina, maybe you can start here, but how do you coach students to show that like emotional intelligence or communication skills during technical interviews?
I think you can show them your soft skills, like by how you approach the challenge. Like sometimes interviewers, I think they don't even expect you to fully solve like the technical challenge. They're more interested in seeing how you approach the problem, how you navigate obstacles, how you demonstrate resilience if you have a mistake. So I think that's something that is really important. I also see sometimes like lack of confidence from our students, because they think, okay, maybe there's going to be someone that is more experienced than me. But it's really important for them to understand that they know what they're supposed to know. They're not going to hire a senior developer, they're going for a junior role. So you know what you're supposed to know, and that's really important. So yeah, I think it's everything about how you face the challenge, how you go over there with confidence, how you show them the good things about being someone that is new in this, your adaptability, your flexibility, that you have things new, that you're motivated, that you're a fast learner. So that's the way we coach them, for them to show them on this during the technical interview.
That's great advice. And Diema asked during the RSVP, how can I project confidence as a new bootcamp grad while still being honest about my experience level? I think that is great. Is a great answer, honestly, Valentina, for that question. But anybody else have anything to add there, projecting confidence when you know that there are probably a lot of people applying for the same job?
Lord knows I do. This is my favorite question, for sure.
I'll go for it. Trey, if it's your favorite, you go.
Everybody's got something to say
Yeah,
here. We can spend a little time here. That's great.
Yeah, definitely my favorite. So I'm a firm believer of the idea. I read a book last year. It was a financial literacy book amongst, some other core themes, but it's called Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. And the best chapter in that book was focused on the idea that, the best story wins. That's in reference to, governmental elections, superstars, celebrities, so on and so forth. The best story, regardless of qualifications, what somebody had and coming into that, whoever can explain themselves the best, connect those dots between what they used to do and the world that they're stepping into, is the person who's going to get it 100% of the time. I am a direct representation of that. I know with absolute certainty in previous roles that I've had in software companies that I've been up against people that were significantly more qualified on paper than I was, but I had enough, for lack of a better word, of the skills, and I had the relatability. I was somebody that really focuses on trying to demonstrate that I'm enjoyable to work with on the day-to-day basis. And so always focus on your story and controlling your story, because interpretation can go a little bit sideways. But if you're being very thorough in regards to your experiences, who you are and what you have to offer, you don't have to worry about those kinds of things. Speak with excitement about the things that you do have. And Trey, personal life law number 2, never volunteer potentially incriminating information. What I mean by that is I don't want to hear statements along the lines of, well, I've never worked with TypeScript, but I have done Java and da 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 da. We don't need to know that you haven't done that. If that's not directly asked of you, we're going to keep that on the hush, and we're going to focus on all the things that you know, that you've achieved, the things that you specialize in, so on and so forth. The double-edged sword slash flip side of that is go get what you don't have. If you feel that there are specific skill gaps that you've identified, sharpen those skills. Work towards certifications that will make you more competitive on paper for the roles that you're applying for. Be curious throughout this job search process because it's otherwise going to be kind of daunting, sometimes annoying, definitely going to play against your confidence. And so we have to find ways to, instill a spark until we get to the point of a job offer. But confidence for the win. If you don't believe it, they won't.
Okay, I hope Dima is listening. That is all fantastic advice. You know what? This is a question that we get in every time we do a live Q&A, and this is from Zoe this time, who said, "Can career changers over 40 still break into tech post boot camp?" 40 may be one of the younger ages I've heard that question asked about. But the answer is always yes, right? Like we always say that everybody always says yes. But I wonder if AI has made that more challenging or if there are like new opportunities. I was just reading that like the HR software Workday is currently facing some legal action about its job applicant screening algorithms and like AI disproportionately weeding out, disqualifying individuals who are a certain age. What do we think here?
So, if I could jump in, I think we need to like take a step back and think about what is the ATS system actually scanning for, right? So when an ATS system reads a resume, they're comparing your skill. They're doing two things. It's first of all looking to see whether or not you made your resume in ChatGPT. If you did make your resume in ChatGPT, it'll automatically throw your resume out. But it's also doing a comparative analysis between the job description and the skills on your resume. So it's not assessing for age. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I think people kind of lose sight of is that when you're interviewing for a position, all you're doing is telling your story and telling who you are. So you want to make sure that that story is reflected on your resume first and foremost. If the story that you're telling is reflected properly on your resume and is an indicator that you would be a good match for a position, AI will not throw your resume out. Again, also don't put your age or anything like that, like what Vinny said, don't put personal information on your resume, but just remember that your goal in the interview process is to make sure the employer knows that out of all of the competition, you are the best match for this position. And if you get rejected for that position, it's only because the company didn't believe that you weren't a match for that position.
And Miriam, while I have you, are there like certain job search platforms right now that your students or mentees are finding most useful today? LinkedIn seems like the one, but like, are there some that are more bot proof or like AI proof than others?
So actually, I think LinkedIn has actually really deteriorated over the past couple of years. I know
It's an interesting space, yeah.
It's an interesting space because everyone uses LinkedIn, and I think we're all afraid to transition off of LinkedIn. What I tell people to do is usually boot camps give like some sort of like guide that says like apply here, and usually a lot of those kind of tech companies are listed in that guide. Like every boot camp has one. And so what I would do is before applying, I would go like, I think like built in or built up is one of the, am I saying it right? I think it's built in.
Built in definitely has job boards, yeah.
What I would do is like I would go on like built in, and before applying to that position, again, you need to go back and message that person on LinkedIn. But right, the job market is not like go on these like websites, mass apply. It's really a place that informs you what company is hiring so that you can do research and you can kind of apply off of these boards. I wouldn't use a board to apply. I would actually use a board to inform me of where to go and who to talk to. Mm-hmm. I would go talk to that person, and then I would have HR send me an interview. And then I would apply for the position like after the third interview. They usually tell you like, hey, I'm gonna send you a link, can you apply? Because the other thing too is that job boards right now have, like when I was a recruiter before I worked at Springboard and the job market wasn't doing that great, we would get like 1,000 resumes. And to be honest, I was not going through 1,000 resumes. What I was doing was I was waiting for the hiring manager to tell me, hey, this person messaged me on LinkedIn and I really like them. Can you interview me? And so that's the reality, because we're human. We cannot go through these resumes.
That is a excellent point. So I think that like network becomes even more important, even if you are looking on LinkedIn, like making that human connection on LinkedIn. And then also like I feel like there's kind of a rise in these more maybe closed or industry specific like Slack groups that end up getting a lot of that kind of function as a job board, and kind of a warm intro in the same breath. But okay, I know we're really at the end of our time here, but everyone is so interesting on this panel, so I apologize for going over just a tiny bit. Can I just ask two more questions? The first is for Vinny, which comes from an RSVP question from Richard, who said, what is the best way to showcase a portfolio if the interviewer doesn't ask for it? And like everybody's graduated from a boot camp with with a cool portfolio, like we're all, focusing on projects, but like what if the interviewer never asks explicitly for it?
So Vinny, the recruiter, probably won't ask you for your portfolio. Like that's the recruiter's not going to know how to look at your portfolio. Half the time they're not super technical. So that's okay. What my favorite thing to do is like one of two things. If they're going to ask you what you like to do for fun, or what are you excited about, or what have you been working on lately, or something like that, that's when you bring it up and show them. That wait for a question that fits the narrative, and then say, actually, I have my portfolio on me. I'd love to show you what I've been working on. Razzle dazzle them. If there's no point in the conversation where that comes up, in your thank you email, you are allowed to attach a link to your GitHub or to your portfolio, and that should be on your resume anyway. A link to your GitHub, as well as the link to your LinkedIn. But if it's not, that's okay. If you're shy about it, it's okay. You can still make it private and share it with certain people, but share it with that recruiter or hiring manager in your follow-up email, saying, "Hey, this didn't come up today, but I would love to show you what I've been working on here. I'm really excited about it." So that's how I would say show off your portfolio. And if you don't have a portfolio, please get one. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be finished. Don't say in an interview, I'm working on something, but I'm not ready to show it yet. Please show us what you're working on, because that's what's going to differentiate you a lot of the time from another person out there that's looking for the same job.
That is fantastic advice. And so we will wrap it up with a final question for each of you, which is, what are you looking forward to in 2026 as a career coach or a career expert? Like, what makes you optimistic about this upcoming year?
I'll go first. I think people are really afraid of the changes that are happening, especially from what the market looked like in 2022 to like 2025. I think I would just encourage people to really lean into that change and know that change is not an end all be all. I'm really excited to see where the tech industry is going and how people adapt to that. And I think a world where, even though things are different, I think there is still a world where, people get jobs in the tech space and they're just different jobs, just a different environment, and that's okay. Sometimes change is good. So I'm really excited to see what 2026 to 2030 looks like in the world of AI.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm excited about how AI is leveling the playing field, because now students with non-traditional backgrounds have access to more powerful tools, and that will help them close that gap faster. So yeah, I'm excited about the new opportunities, the new jobs that are going to be popping out this next couple of years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is probably a selfish answer. I'm just looking forward to working with more people, supporting folks, watching people win. That is the whole reason I do this job. Nobody asked, but my full-time job in software companies is customer success and account management. There's no role that I've ever loved like career coaching. And so, yeah, I just want to see people win and achieve what it is that they're putting in so much time and effort to achieve.
I personally am really excited of the concept of what is old is new again. This is not the first time we've seen a seismic shift around in technology where suddenly everybody's dropping everything and doing something. We saw this in machine learning. We saw this in cloud computing. We've seen this in a variety of different technologies that come out. Everyone talks about it for a hot minute. The market adjusts and we take a deep breath and see what we actually need. So I'm really excited for us to get to the part where we're taking a deep breath and seeing what we actually need. Some key trends that are emerging are things I'm super excited about of like, we have some guardrails about how AI is used and how people are using it. And we know where we sort of the next steps we want to take, which is great. And we know that we want to talk to people and communicate with each other. And soft skills are still front and center, which is great news for everybody on this call who teach soft skills for a living. So but I'm personally excited for more great conversations and meeting more people and helping them get to where they need to be. So that's me. That's what I'm excited for in 2026.
Well, I think that is a great place to wrap up. So I will just say thank you all so much, Vinny, Miriam, Trey, Valentina. Your insights today were very generous and very actionable. So we really appreciate it. I think it's very clear that any of the students that you get to work with are at a tremendous advantage in the job search process, especially right now. So if you are watching this and want to learn more about 4Geeks Academy, Tech Elevator, Hack Reactor, General Assembly, or Springboard, I will include links in the full recap of today's discussion on the Course Report blog. So please stay tuned for that. And of course, if there is a topic that you want us to explore in a future live Q&A, whether that's around AI, portfolio building, landing your first tech job, please send us a message at hello@coursereport.com. We would love to hear from you. And thanks again for joining today. Good luck out there on your interviews. We will see you on the next one.